My millionaire mother-in-law destroyed my $15K wedding dress with scissors and wine, but I installed hidden cameras and recorded her confessing. Then I played the video at our wedding in front of 200 guests and left her destroyed and disinherited. I'm 35 years old. I work for an airline. Well, I used to work as a flight attendant until recently. And I need to tell you about what I went through at my wedding like 3 months ago, because I still can't believe I actually did what I did. I've been with Julian for 3.5 years. He's 26 years old and he's the sole heir to a pretty big shipping company. And from the first day I met his mother, I knew she hated me. I mean, literally from the first second she saw me, it was obvious she didn't like me. I remember that day perfectly because Julian was super nervous. Like he had warned me that his mom was, let's say, complicated. But I thought he was exaggerating, like everyone does with their mothers-in-law, you know? So anyway, we arrived at this huge mansion on the outskirts of the city, a house that looked like it came out of an architecture magazine, and his mother, Octavia Beaumont, greeted us at the door with this smile that didn't reach her eyes at all. She extended her hand, like she was touching something disgusting, and when Julian introduced me as a flight attendant, I swear I saw her wrinkle her nose, like super subtle, but I noticed it perfectly. The first 2 years with Julian were incredible. I mean, he's such a loving person, super attentive and caring, but every time we had to see his mom, it was like preparing to go to war. Octavia found any excuse to remind me that I wasn't good enough for her son, that I came from a normal working-class family. My parents are good people, but they don't have money. My dad worked in construction his whole life, and my mom is a secretary, that my job was basically a servant in the air, according to how she put it, and that on top of that I was 9 years older than Julian, as if that were a crime or something. Every family dinner was torture. She made passive-aggressive comments all the time, like she would ask me if I had met any celebrities on my flights, and then add something like, "It must be exciting for someone in your position to be so close to important people." And I would just sit there wanting to disappear while Julian squeezed my hand under the table. When Julian proposed to me like a 1.5 years ago, it was the happiest day of my life, honestly. He organized this super romantic thing on the beach at sunset with candles and the whole deal, and I cried like a baby when he got down on his knees. But literally the day after we announced it to his family, Octavia showed up at our apartment without warning, which was already invasive because we live like 40 minutes from her house, and she started her next sabotage campaign. She told me, and I remember this verbatim because it was burned into my brain. She said, "Vanessa, if you really love my son, you're going to quit that ridiculous job? A Beaumont wife doesn't work as a flight attendant? It's embarrassing for the family." Julian was furious and told her to leave, but I knew this was just the beginning of something much worse. The thing is that I love my job. I mean, I loved it, because I eventually did have to leave it, but it was my decision and for other reasons. Being a flight attendant was my life. I had been doing it for like 12 years. I had traveled all over the world, met incredible people. I had friends who were like sisters to me on the crew. But Octavia did everything to make me feel like my profession was something dirty or inferior. At family gatherings, she would introduce me as Julian's girlfriend, who works in customer service, specifically avoiding saying flight attendant. Or worse yet, sometimes she wouldn't introduce me at all. She'd just say, "And this is Vanessa," without any more context, as if I wasn't worth explaining. My parents, Marcus and Deborah, didn't help much either, if I'm being honest. They were obsessed with me fitting into that rich family, like they saw my relationship with Julian as this opportunity for social climbing, and they constantly pressured me not to make waves, to put up with whatever Octavia did to me, to smile and nod and basically become a doormat. My mom would say things like, "Oh honey, it's normal for mothers-in-law to be difficult, they all are. You just have to be patient." And my dad would add, "Think about the future you'll have with that boy. Don't ruin it out of pride." I mean, they were basically asking me to sacrifice my dignity for money, which made me feel worse because I wasn't with Julian for his money. I truly loved him, but they didn't seem to understand that. So we decided to get married. We set the date for July of this year, like we had about 8 months to plan everything. Julian wanted a big wedding because his family is one of those that does huge events for everything, and although I would have preferred something more intimate, I agreed because I knew it was important to him. We hired a wedding planner, booked this incredible venue that was like a super fancy botanical garden, sent invitations to 200 people, a whole deal. During those months of preparation, Octavia tried to sabotage things constantly. She wanted to change the menu without consulting us because, according to her, what we had chosen was too common. She tried to invite people that we specifically didn't want there. She complained about the color of the flowers, about the band we hired, literally about everything. But the dress was my line in the sand, you know what I mean? I had been working with a designer friend of mine, Luna Davidson, who's incredible and had created this absolutely perfect dress for me. We had worked together for months on the design. It was lace with long sleeves, V-neck, a dramatic but not exaggerated train, all handmade with details that Luna had embroidered specifically thinking about my story with Julian. The dress cost like $15,000, which I know sounds crazy, but it was my only extravagance in the whole wedding. Julian insisted on paying for it because he knew how much I meant to me. When it was finally ready, like a week before the wedding, Luna brought it to me personally, wrapped in this special protective bag, and I cried when I tried it on at home because it was perfect. Like it was exactly what I had dreamed of. I hung it in my closet in the room that Julian and I shared in our apartment. Julian was still at work and I decided to take a quick shower before he got home for dinner. I left my phone on the nightstand charging, you know, like you normally do. I got in the shower singing because I was super happy thinking about the wedding that would be in exactly 6 days. I was in there for like 20 minutes. I washed my hair, shaved, everything calm. When I got out wrapped in a towel and came back to the room, the first thing I saw was the closet open and the dress thrown on the floor. I didn't understand what I was seeing at first. I mean, my brain wasn't processing the image. I got closer, and then I saw that the dress was destroyed. There were cuts everywhere. The lace was torn to pieces, the sleeves cut off, the train shredded, and there were like red stains all over it that took me a second to realize was red wine. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Literally felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I knelt down next to the dress and my hands were shaking as I tried to understand what had happened. For a moment, I thought it had been an accident, like it had fallen and someone had stepped on it or something absurd like that. But then I saw the scissors thrown about a meter away and I understood that this had been intentional. My first reaction was to scream, like an animal scream that came from somewhere deep, and then I heard footsteps running in the living room. The bedroom door opened and there was Octavia, with this expression on her face that I'll never forget. It was like surprise mixed with satisfaction. Like she got caught doing something but she didn't care. She saw me kneeling with the destroyed dress and said in this super fake voice, "Oh no, how terrible, what happened here?" And I knew, in that second I knew with every fiber of my being that she had done this. I asked her, screaming what she had done, and she got all dramatic, saying that she had just arrived, that she had found the door open, that maybe a thief had gotten in, pure, obvious lies that not even she believed. Julian arrived like 10 minutes later. I was still on the floor crying with the dress, and Octavia was sitting in the living room acting like she was the victim of the situation. Julian saw the dress and went pale, then looked at his mother and asked her directly if she had done this. Octavia got all offended and indignant, said, how dare he accuse her, that she would never do something like that she was there to help because she had heard screaming, basically continued with her theater. I was so in shock that I couldn't even speak coherently. I just cried and cried, thinking there was no time to make another dress, that my wedding was ruined, that 6 days weren't enough to fix this. But then, and this was like divine intervention or something, I remembered that my phone had been on the nightstand the whole time. I have a security app that activates the camera when it detects movement in the room. I installed it months ago because we had had problems with the building and there had been some robberies. I grabbed the phone with my hands still shaking and opened the app, and there it was, a 23-minute video automatically recorded while I was in the shower. I pressed play and I almost couldn't believe what I was seeing, although obviously it was exactly what had happened. The video showed Octavia entering the room like 2 minutes after I got in the shower. She knew I was there because you could hear the water running in the background. First, she looked around like checking that she was alone, then she went straight to the closet and took out the dress. For a moment, she just looked at it hanging. And I swear that on her face, there was this pure hatred that gave me chills. Seeing it later, then she grabbed the scissors from my desk and started cutting. First the sleeves, then the bodice, then the train. She was destroying it methodically as if she had planned exactly how to do it. When she finished cutting, she grabbed a bottle of red wine from her purse, a bottle that she had obviously brought specifically for this, and poured the wine over the already destroyed dress. rubbing it into the fabric to make sure the stains would be permanent. All this while I was meters away without knowing anything. The most disturbing part of the video was that Octavia was smiling while she did it, like she was enjoying it. And at the end, when she finished, she took a moment to admire her work before throwing the dress on the floor along with the scissors. Then she arranged everything else to make it look like someone had come in from outside. She moved some things on the desk, left the dress bag badly placed, basically staged the scene to make it look like a robbery. Then she sat on my bed to wait, I guess calculating the perfect timing to discover the disaster just when I came out. I showed them both the video, Julian and Octavia, and his face was absolute horror, while hers was pure panic. She tried to grab my phone, but Julian got in the way. He yelled at her to get out of our house immediately, like I had never seen him so furious in the 3 years we'd been together. Octavia completely changed tactics. She started crying and saying that she had done it for Julian's good, that I wasn't appropriate for the family, that that dress was a show of my bad taste, that she was only trying to protect him from making a mistake. Basically, all the poison she had been keeping came out in that moment. Julian told her she was sick, that he never wanted to see her again, and he practically pushed her towards the door. She left screaming that we were going to regret this, that the family would never accept me, that Julian was making the biggest mistake of his life. When she left, I completely broke down. I mean, I spent like 2 hours crying in Julian's arms while he promised me that we were going to fix this, that he would pay whatever was necessary for Luna to make another dress or we would find something, that our wedding was going to be perfect no matter what. But I knew there wasn't material time. 6 days weren't enough to create a custom wedding dress from scratch, and all the store dresses I could buy wouldn't be the same. They wouldn't have the meaning. They wouldn't be my dress. I felt devastated, but also, and this is important, I felt furious. It wasn't just sadness, it was pure rage, because this woman had crossed a line that I didn't even know existed. She had destroyed something that was deeply personal to me, just out of pure hatred. That night, when Julian finally fell asleep because he was emotionally exhausted, I stayed awake, thinking. I grabbed my phone and sent a message to Luna. I told her everything that had happened and sent her the video. She responded almost immediately. She was horrified, and she told me to come see her first thing in the morning with the dress. I went the next day carrying the destroyed dress in a bag. Luna examined it piece by piece and told me that technically it was repairable, that it was going to be insane work to do it in 5 days, but that she and her team could do it if they worked practically without sleeping. I told her to do whatever she had to do, that I would pay extra, whatever was necessary. And she hugged me and promised me that my dress would be ready. But here comes the part that probably makes this sound like calculated revenge, and I guess that's exactly what it was. I told Julian that there was no possible fix, that the dress was completely ruined, that I was going to have to buy something from a store, and that although it hurt me, I was going to be okay. He felt terrible. He wanted to call his mom and confront her more. He even talked about involving the police or suing her for damages. But I told him no, that I just wanted to forget the incident and focus on the wedding. My parents, by the way, when they found out what had happened, told me not to do anything dramatic, not to publicly accuse Octavia because it would ruin family harmony. They basically asked me to swallow this huge humiliation for the sake of appearances, which made me feel even more determined to do what I was planning. The next 5 days were crazy with last-minute preparations. Julian was stressed trying to manage all the family drama, because obviously Octavia was calling all the relatives telling her version of the story. That I had falsely accused her of destroying my dress. That she was the victim of my paranoia. The whole deal. I stayed calm. Continued with the preparations as if nothing had happened. I even went to a store and bought a generic cheap dress that I left hanging visibly in my closet, so that Julian and anyone who visited would think that was my replacement dress. Luna sent me photos of the progress every day. Her team was working miracles, reconstructing the lace, re-embroidering the details, treating the wine stains that luckily hadn't completely penetrated the fabric, all while we kept this in absolute secrecy. And the wedding day arrived and I was surprisingly calm. Considering what I was about to do, I got ready at my parents' house with my cousin and my 2 best friends. The real dress arrived in the morning in a new protective bag brought by Luna herself, who hugged me crying and told me it had turned out even better than the original. I put it on and it was true. It looked perfect. You couldn't tell it had been destroyed and reconstructed. It looked like it had just come out of her workshop that day. My friends were confused because I had told them I was going to wear the store dress, but I quickly explained to them that it had been a strategic lie and that they would understand everything later. The ceremony was at the botanical garden at 4 in the afternoon. There were like 200 guests sitting in perfectly arranged white chairs, flowers everywhere, a beautiful arch where Julian was waiting for me with his best man. Octavia was in the front row on the groom's family side, dressed in a cream-colored suit that technically violated the rule of not wearing white to someone else's wedding, but I already expected that kind of move from her. When the entrance music started and I appeared at the end of the aisle with my dad, I could see Julian's face of confusion transform into surprise and joy when he saw the real dress, and then I saw Octavia's face and there it was. That moment of absolute horror when she realized what was happening. I walked down that aisle feeling like a queen, literally. Every step was powerful and deliberate, and I couldn't stop looking at Octavia, who had turned completely pale. Julian was waiting for me with tears in his eyes. He whispered, "How did you do it?" When I got to his side, and I just winked at him. The ceremony was beautiful. We said our vows, we kissed, everything perfect. And then we went to the reception, which was in a hall adjacent to the garden. A huge space with very high ceilings and crystal chandeliers, impeccably decorated tables, a dance floor in the center, live band, the whole classic elegant wedding deal. Dinner went normally, well, as normal as it can be with 200 people. The food was delicious, people drank champagne, danced. Everyone seemed to be having a good time except Octavia, who looked like she had been eating lemons all day. After dinner came the time for speeches. The best man gave a funny speech. My sister said some nice words, and then I took the microphone. I announced that I had something special to show, that it was a video of the wedding preparations, and I signaled to the audio and video guy we had hired. He put up the big screen that we had used to show photos of Julian and me during dinner, and I played the video that I had prepared specifically for this moment. The screen first showed some normal photos of us in the preparations, nothing out of the ordinary. People smiled and commented on how beautiful the images were. Then a date and time appeared on the screen, and the video changed to the security recording from my room, that day a week ago. The hall became completely silent when everyone started to understand what they were seeing. There was Octavia entering the room, taking the dress out of the closet, grabbing the scissors, methodically cutting every part of the dress, pouring the wine, all in high definition for 200 people to see clearly. The video lasted like 3 minutes. I had edited it to show only the most damning parts, and when it ended, the silence in the hall was deafening. I took the microphone again and said, in the calmest voice I could, I wanted everyone to know what my mother-in-law did 1 week before my wedding. She destroyed my wedding dress in an act of pure cruelty, and then lied about it and tried to blame an imaginary thief. Fortunately, my dress was able to be repaired by my incredible friend Luna, and that's why I'm here wearing the dress she tried to take away from me. Octavia, since the day I met your son, you've done everything possible to make me feel inferior, to sabotage our relationship, to humiliate me in every way you could think of, but this crossed a line I can't forgive. I wanted everyone to see exactly who you are, not the refined and elegant woman you pretend to be, but someone capable of this level of malice and deceit. My wedding is perfect not because of you, but in spite of you, and you will never again have power over me or over my marriage. The chaos that followed was, well, memorable to say the least. Octavia got up from her chair screaming that this was a lie, that the video was edited, that I was a damn manipulative bitch. She literally screamed that with the microphone still on for everyone to hear. She started walking towards me as if she was going to physically attack me. Her face was red with fury and shame, and several guests had to get up to block her way. Her husband, Julian's father, who had always been more passive in all this drama, grabbed her by the arm and tried to get her out of the hall while she kept screaming obscenities. The venue security also approached because she was making a huge scene, and eventually they literally dragged her outside, kicking and screaming, while probably 100 people were recording everything with their phones. The hall went silent after she left. Everyone was looking at me with this mix of shock and fascination, and I honestly didn't know what to do. Julian came up on stage, hugged me, took the microphone, and said, "My wife has endured years of abuse from my mother, with more patience and grace than I would have had. And if you think what she just did was too much, consider what you felt watching that video for 3 minutes, and then imagine living with that kind of cruelty for 3 years. I completely support her decision to expose this publicly, and I want everyone to know that from this moment on, my mother is not welcome in our lives." People started to applaud. Not everyone, but most. and the band started playing again, trying to recover the party atmosphere. Although obviously the energy had completely changed. My parents were furious with me. My mom pulled me aside like an hour later and told me that I had publicly humiliated the Beaumont family, that this was going to have consequences, that I had ruined my own wedding with my need for revenge, basically everything I knew they were going to say. My dad added that I had been cruel and unnecessary, that I could have handled this privately, that now Julian was going to end up resenting me for putting him in this position against his mother. All that, I told them I didn't give a damn what they thought. That they had spent months asking me to endure abuse for money and appearances, and that I had decided to defend myself in the only way I felt would make Octavia really understand that she couldn't keep treating me like that. We yelled at each other for like 10 minutes until Julian intervened and asked them to leave if they couldn't be supportive, and they left early from the reception, which honestly was a relief. The rest of the night was strange but not terrible. A lot of people came up to tell me that they had seen problematic behaviors from Octavia for years, that she had done similar things to other people, that they admired me for finally exposing her. Julian's extended family was divided. Some thought I had gone too far. Others were on Julian's and my side. We danced, cut the cake, all the traditional stuff, but obviously there was this giant elephant in the room of what had happened. When everything finally ended and Julian and I went to the hotel where we would spend the night before our honeymoon flight the next day, we sat on the bed and processed everything that had happened. Julian told me that when he saw the video again on the big screen, he felt a fury he had never experienced before. That hearing his mother scream insults at me afterward was the defining moment where he knew there was no going back in his relationship with her. He told me he had been dealing with years of manipulation from his mother, that she had always tried to control every aspect of his life, but that seeing her destroy my dress, knowing how important it was to me, showed him a side of her that he didn't want to acknowledge before. He asked me if I had planned to show the video from the moment I found it, and I told him yes. That maybe it was vindictive and calculated, but that I felt it was the only thing that was going to make her understand that she couldn't keep doing what she did without consequences. The next day, before we left for the airport for our honeymoon in Europe, Octavia showed up at our house. Julian's father had brought her because apparently she had been saying all night that she needed to talk to her son. Julian went down alone while I waited upstairs, and I could hear parts of the conversation because she was yelling. She was telling him that I had manipulated him, that the video was taken out of context, that she had only done what she did because she was desperate to save him from making a huge mistake, marrying someone so inappropriate. Basically, she kept doubling down on her position. Julian told her he didn't want to see her again, that what she had done was unforgivable, that he loved me and that he had chosen to build a life with me, not with her. Octavia then played her final card. She told him that if he didn't leave the marriage and publicly apologize for the humiliation I had caused her, she was going to disinherit him completely, that he wouldn't see a penny of her money or of the shipping company. Julian. And this was the moment when I knew without a doubt that I had chosen well to marry him. Told her he didn't care about her money, that he had his own career as an architect, and that his inheritance had never been a reason why he was with her. Octavia left hysterical, screaming that we were going to regret it, that the whole family was going to turn their backs on us, that we were dead to her, basically all the drama you can imagine. We went to Europe for a month. Julian had organized this incredible trip through Italy, France, and Spain, and honestly, it was exactly what we needed after all the chaos. We turned off our phones most of the time. We only turned them on like every 3 days to check that there were no emergencies. And every time we did, there were like 50 messages from various family members with updates on the drama. Apparently, Octavia did follow through on her threat and changed her will. She took Julian out completely and left everything, to various charities and distant cousins, like she really disinherited him as revenge. Most of Julian's extended family cut contact with her after the video. Some of her siblings and cousins told her that what she had done was unforgivable, and now she's basically socially isolated except for 2 or 3 people who still support her. My parents eventually calmed down. Like a month after we got back from our honeymoon, my mom called me and apologized for her initial reaction. She said she had been talking with her therapist about why she had prioritized appearances over my well-being, and that she realized she had been wrong. My dad is still a bit distant about the whole thing, but at least he doesn't criticize me anymore for what I did. Julian decided to do a small reception like 2 months after the wedding. He invited only like 30 people who really supported us. It was at his best man's house, super intimate and relaxed, and that one really felt like a true celebration without all the drama and tension. Octavia tried to contact Julian several times after, sending letters saying she wanted to reconcile, that she was willing to go to family therapy, that she would accept me if it meant having her son back in her life. Julian hasn't responded to any of those letters. He says that after years of mistreatment towards me, and then the destruction of the dress followed by months of refusing to take real responsibility, he doesn't see a path to rebuild that relationship. He says that maybe in the distant future he would consider some kind of limited communication, but that for now he needs to protect our peace and his mental health by keeping her out of our lives. As for the inheritance, Julian really doesn't care as much as Octavia thought he would care. He makes good money as an architect. I left my job as a flight attendant a few months ago to take an administrative position at the same airline with better hours and better pay. We're perfectly capable of living comfortably without his family's money. I think Octavia thought the financial threat was going to make Julian leave me and come crawling back to her, but it only proved that she never really understood her own son or what he valued. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far showing that video in front of 200 people. If there was a more private way to handle all that. But then I remember the 3 years of degrading comments, of constant sabotage, of feeling less than human in every family interaction. And above all, I remember that destroyed dress on the floor and the satisfaction on her face when she pretended not to know what had happened. And I don't regret it. Octavia had operated for years in the shadows, being cruel in private but maintaining this public facade of a refined and educated woman, and I felt that the only way to really stop her was to remove that mask in front of everyone. Maybe that makes me vindictive or petty. I don't know. But it brought me closure that I don't think I would have gotten any other way. Julian and I are fine. Better than fine, honestly. All this drama in a way made us stronger because we had to face this impossible situation together and we came out the other side united. We're talking about having kids in the next few years, and obviously Octavia isn't going to have any role in their lives. Which is sad in a way, but it's also protecting our future children from someone who proved to be capable of calculated cruelty. Last week was our 3-month wedding anniversary, and Julian surprised me with a photo album of the wedding that he had made, including photos of me in the repaired dress, and seeing it reminded me why all this was worth it.